Good morning. Wakey, wakey, everybody. Hi, Teresa. It's good to see you. All right. So I'm going to be a little sad after today's class because we're going to finish today with, the outline and instructions of Pabonka's meditation chapter, where he's wrapping up in his discussion after everything we've talked about. He's wrapping it up and saying, look, don't get lost in, how does he say it? He's basically saying, don't get lost in wrong meditation. Then it's a huge danger. And I see it happen to a lot of meditators. They get a little bit lost in what they're doing. And then they kind of get stuck in things like subtle dullness, or that they think that they're focusing on emptiness, or they think that they're getting, deeper in, but all they're doing is creating the causes for more suffering. And it's a big warning. It's not like this big like he's not like he's pumping everybody up by saying, look, you have to be careful. I'm like, and he's repeating it over and over and over again. And as I've read this many times, and I've always wondered, like, as a teacher, like, what is he doing? Like, what is he really trying to say? And I kind of, and like, there are no recordings. The recordings of the teachings is this book we're translating. Trijang Rinpoche took notes in 1921, right? And then compiled those notes and worked with his teacher to make sure he got all the details correct. But he wrote it out. Like, the record of the teaching is this, right? It's not like it's not like we have a video recording or an audio recording of what was actually said, you know. But I kind of want to, I've always imagined, like, what would have been like to be there. I spent 14 years learning this text from my teacher. 14 years, 14 years, right? And the way that he brought it alive, the way he made it relatable, he, in a lot of ways, he gave a commentary on the text, right? And because, he was taught it 3 times completely from his teacher. And I'm like, what would it have been like to be there? You know, we've spent a little over a year doing one chapter, one day of teaching, right? He gave the teaching in 24 full days, right? Which is about, no, we're going much slower because we're doing something different. But that's like, what would have been like to listen to him? Like, what was his emotion when he was talking? He obviously wasn't a boring presenter, because that was Pabonka's thing. Like, that was the reason he was also criticized, because he taught people. He taught normal people. He wasn't just teaching in the monasteries, and he wasn't just teaching you know, the high and holy monks, right? He was teaching normal people. And he was very adamant about that. So I know how hard it is to get people to come to class. At ACI, Anastasia and Alona and Francisco is here too. Like, just to get people to come. Marina trying to find volunteers. Sometimes we just can't find the people that we need, right? Please translate this class. Please, record this. Please upload it. Like, it's hard. Normal life pulls people away and pulls us away too. But I just imagine that he must have been, you know, completely entertaining. He must have, even the a lot of the jokes he made in Tibetan came through even like the transcript, right? Like I just imagine it was like a room full, like 800 people, like laughing all day long, right? You know. Oh, Anna too. I just looked at Anna. Anna's doing all this work for us on the platforms and managing all the volunteers. Like, it's a big job. Thank you, Anna, for all the work you do too. It's and I mean, we talked about Natalia last week building websites. It's a huge task, and to do a teaching like that, imagine all the volunteers running around. What if what if we were all the volunteers in that class? Think of it that way, right? We were the ones serving Tibetan butter tea. Oh, it's so salted butter tea. It's so delicious. It's kind of healthy for you in a way. Um, but you know, what was it like? What was it like to listen to him? Like, why did people keep coming? And then I think that's, to me, that's what kind of it kind of motivates me. Is like to think about how difficult it was to have a teaching. You know, they didn't have, well, they didn't have phones to advertise with. They didn't have phones. I mean, actually, like literal phones. They didn't have social media. They didn't have any of those things. I mean, they probably have one venue in the town, right? It's what actually went on to produce those things. And then you got to feed all the people. I mean, come on, like all day long. I mean, just imagine the bathroom rentals, like 800 people. But like how sweet would it have been to be there? What would have been, I've been to some really like teachings where you feel the energy, right? You feel like there's something happening, and the audience just, you feel like something's being created, and it's like it's so much greater than the words that are being said. And he's also like warning people to be like, be very, very careful with what you do in your meditations and how you do them. So he's going to repeat the same thing over and over again for the next 10 or so verses. And we're going to go through them because we're going through the whole book. Let's see here. Here we go. I have a random question. Marina, could you screenshot what this looks like on your computer? Because the way that I set it up works for me, but I want to see what this looks like, the screen with the shared screen. You don't have to send it to me right now, but just send it to me later. All right. So here we are. This last line, I'll just review it. We're not going to read it again, but I'll review what it said. Something happened here. Oh, that's what happened. Okay, sorry. 240. Okay. Sorry. I Something happened to the text. Okay. All right. So in this, it has something happened to my notes. I need to change something. Sorry about that. So what's happening here in this last section here, 248, is that he's kind of complaining about people who engage in a deep aspect of emptiness. They're like, I'm going to study emptiness because I'm an awesome Buddhist, right? Like that's what, like this is how people feel. I'm studying emptiness. Or like in our group, it's always like, did you hear about the pen? Then people run around like showing pens to people, right? But not those people, but there's some people that try to understand emptiness, but they're doing it in such a surface level. And they refuse to take themselves to the great classics. They refuse to study what those things really say. And so they hear these super sexy words like Mahamudra, Sokchen, right? Oh, I'm a creation stage practitioner. I'm practicing completion stage, you know, like I'm doing blazing drip, you know. They're really good at the words and really good at the like saying them and basically I call these people super spiritual people. They're so super spiritual, right? They'd love to tell you about their practice. They love to tell you, how they're one with the universe. And then you start asking about it, and then there's a lack of detail. And I'm not saying that those things can't happen to people without having read the great classics. That's not what this is saying. But it's about people collecting tantric initiations because they collect art, fine art that they put on their wall that they know nothing about, right? And then they invite all their friends over and go, ooh, look at that painting I bought, right? um, and I'm not saying don't collect fine art. I'm not saying that's not what I'm saying, right? But it's this idea that they've put such little effort into it, and they're just, what's the word in English? They're just giving lip service, right? They're just saying, "Oh, I'm I, I'm studying the guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life. I'm a Lojong practitioner." Okay, don't tell me you're a Lojong practitioner. Let me see you as a Lojong practitioner. There's a big difference. And a Lojong practitioner wouldn't tell you they're a Lojong practitioner because they're not. A Lojong practitioner would be embarrassed to say they're doing Lojong, right? They would just be doing it. Anyway, that's where we are. Okay, he's talking about super spiritual people, right? One of my good friends, his Instagram handle is super spiritual. He's hysterical and he makes fun of that. But I think there's something, less humorous about it too. It's like, it's, do we, it's, how do I say this? When we reach the edges of things, do we push through them or do we just stop? Like, oh, I haven't, that's enough. I don't need any more than that. Or are those edges when you reach the yeah, you reach the edge. Is it the edge because there's nowhere else to go or because it's uncomfortable to go further? And I think that's what he's talking about here, right? It's uncomfortable to have to get out of subtle dullness because subtle dullness is so attractive. This relationship is good enough. It's 90%. I don't need to deal with the other 10%. It's okay. It's enough. You see, like that's what he's talking about here. Now let's get started. 249. Let's see. Who wants to read first? Oh, in my pictures, Marina, you are first. You get a short one today.
Jakche cawa
Chakchen.
le
Chakchen.
check chen cawa le kyang semgo tawa soknisem kikun dzop pe go dr tam in par sum.
Yes. Okay. So where this lay here is indicating from a particular text. So from the Chakchen Sawa, the root text Sawa can mean root. It also can mean primary. It can also mean something else I learned last night that I don't remember. Hold on, I looked it up. It also can mean like the root of a plant. Okay. Like the root text on Chakchen, the Great Seal, like Mahamudra. Okay. There's a sutra version and there's a tantric version of this as well. The Great Seal. So from that particular text. So this kyang here means but. So what it means here is it's referring back to the previous statement. And it's kind of saying, in this case, it's saying like the actual text is saying this, right? So what is the actual text saying? So let's see here. So the idea is that in a Mahamudra, you're looking at your own mind. Like first level practice of this, well, it builds upon this, but the first part of this is mainly looking at your own mind. I'm looking at what my mind is doing. It's a phenomenal meditation to do. Like just sit there and watch what the hell your mind does. Is it, you're looking at its qualities, you're looking at its content, like what kind of content comes up, and that's really an important piece of like the content of your mind will tell you exactly what it is you need to work on. If you're upset at someone, why are you upset? Then you go through the process. Well, they did this thing to me. They did that to me. And you're like, and then after a while, you're like, could someone else see this differently? Like, well, yeah, it could be seen differently. Maybe I don't have all the information. Then you look at the nature of the affliction and you understand where it came from. It came from how the person out there did nothing to you. Your karma forced them to do the thing to you that you saw them do. Right. And so meeting the mind face to face. Right. But it doesn't actually really do anything for you. And I'm looking up another word here. Right. Because all this is really doing is that it's in reinforcing your kunsobness. What's kunsob? The opposite of kunsob is dundam. Right? It's deceptive reality. Okay. So what's going on here is that you're just reinforcing deceptive reality. You're just like, just doing the what's going on in my mind meditation is just reinforcing it. It's just like it's introducing yourself to yourself as you are in deceptive reality. It's kind of a cool way of thinking of it. Like, oh, what did I think about? I thought about that person that doesn't like me. Then I thought about, ooh, the coffee I just made. Then I thought about this. And then I thought about that. And then I thought about the smoke over the mountain. And then, you know, and you're just like recording everything onto a record, right? But notice what I did in the example, though. The example I gave was you're looking at your afflicted state of mind. And then you start analyzing it and being like, well, where is that coming from? Now that does something for you. Just playing the record of your afflictions over and over again is just, it's like playing the band. It's like playing a band called Kunzob, right? That's kind of a good band name, right? You're just playing it for the deceptive nature of the mind. No, right? So on the surface, if you're just doing these surface practices, they're not going to take you anywhere. But the surface practices become foundations for more. And that's what we're talking about, the difference between super spiritual and, I don't know, humble spiritual. Maybe we'll call it that. All right. 250. Roxana, are you translating or are you participating? Both. Would you like to read a line? Oh, we're not able to hear you. Hmm. It's okay. We can try next time. Like we can't hear you, at least unless it's my problem. Am I the only one who can't hear her? Okay, let's try. Let's go to Francisco, since you're the next picture.
Thank you. Dena de ra la ra yi gonsan ochi sakyan rachi gongbu sedu pashin lamgo lamgo chitu yampa yupa lesan.
Good. Good. Okay. So he's continuing on his slinging of insults. Okay. Let's see here. So these types of people think that they're doing some kind of fantastic meditation. Okay. And I kind of imagine in this moment, like either like there's two different kind of lamas that would be here, right? Like, is this the lama who is like laughing when he's saying this? Or is this the lama who's like getting a little wrathful, right? Getting a little serious, and I don't know. I think we could read it both ways because that was, that's the, if he has everybody's attention for that long, then he can get really serious. So I don't know. You can decide. I'm going to just read it the way I'm reading it. So, and he's basically saying all of this is going down the wrong road. It's not even a mistaken road. Okay. He said you could call this a mistaken road. like wandering around on some mistaken road. But really what it is it's the wrong road. And he says, you might as well just meditate. You might as well just meditate and think that you're basically saying put a put a ball of metal in your hand, like steel, put some steel in your hand and meditate that it's actually a pile of gold. Okay. Wishing, right? I'm going to put some metal in my hand and I'm going to close my eyes and wish that it becomes gold, something valuable. So he's like, look, if you're thinking you're doing some kind of fantastic meditation, and I would even argue, if we get more subtle, that this can extend not to the super spiritual people that I'm slightly making fun of right now, but this also would extend to even really good meditators. That you get to a certain place where it feels really good. And then you just reach the edge and stop. And I think that's what he's saying here is like, we can make fun of all of these other people, but really what I'm doing is making fun of them by actually pointing out to you that you're not much different than they are. This is Pabonka talking to his audience. I'm not talking about you. I don't know who you are. Okay. But he's basically saying it's a mistaken path and it's a wrong path. You know, and you can kind of get the feeling that he's like, guys, pay attention right now because you're going to go off and meditate and you're going to have all of these problems. All right. Next person, 251. Ludmila.
Ching, yin, yin.
Jing is correct.
Chin va sakpala kom to trulne company kam kon Marian ben minushin tu troi gyu gruppa tavu chun va yente.
Nice. Good. All right. So here's our topicalizer. Okay. Everything before this is going to indicate what we're talking about. So by meditating, this is a good word to use. I'm going to make sure I have this correct here. You know, by meditating in this way, it's like you're collecting a whole bunch of experiences of dullness. And it won't help you get to the high, that won't actually help you get to the higher realms of this suffering life. Okay. And then he says it's more like working on the causes to come about to right. It's working on the causes to achieve some kind of rebirth that's nothing more than a animal. Okay. So this is actually even more scary. Like before we said, oh, well, you know, if you get to these higher states, I mean, you might be born in the, you know, the form realm or formless realm, right? But what he's saying is mental dullness, collecting mental dullness, like getting to a place where you're at what level of meditation? 5, 6, 7, right? Before dullness goes away, which is a pretty high meditation, like say 6 part of 7. All you're doing is collecting the karma to be dull like an animal. And not only like an animal, you will become one. That's pretty harsh. At least in my point, it feels pretty harsh. All right. Y'all keep moving your pictures around. If you turn off your camera and then turn it back on, it puts your picture at the bottom of the list. So then I don't have to call on you. Just trying to teach you how to avoid being called on, because someone who was gonna be a first-time reader turned off their camera, and I was like, oh, okay, you're avoiding reading. Of course, they didn't know what was going on. So, Teresa, because of the great fortune of 2 or 3 people turning off their camera, you get to read the next line.
Sa pan yi learn lumpa chakya che gompa palcher de kroi guru gur gyur yang na nyan tongog par tung yang na tukme kamsu ki che sung.
Nice. You even got the meter down. That was good job. All right. So the way we format this is, and then when we kind of translate this and this together. And these are the verse in between. So as the great Sakya Pandita put it or said, all right, let's see here. Lupo is a foolish person, someone who's just well, this is our translation of super spiritual. Okay. A lumpo is someone who's super spiritual. Okay. So a lumpo, a super spiritual person, meditates. When they meditate on the Great Seal, all right, it's supposed to be that way. They're doing nothing but creating the causes to be an animal. Okay, so basically, Pabonka said something, and then he's now quoting someone else who said the same thing. All right. They might be able to, if they did that, they might be lucky, let's sort of say that, to be able to achieve the cessations of the nentus, the listeners. All right. So they might, this super spiritual person might be able to enjoy some of the cessations of a listener. And what are those things? Like, you get some cool things that happen just as a listener. Like, you might be able to shut off your busy mind. You might be able to, calm that down, but it doesn't really have any spiritual benefit. That's like one of the examples. All right. So if you're lucky, like Yangna is like, or else, right? So you're not going to you might be reborn as an animal, right? If the fool does this, if you're lucky, or, if it goes somewhat well, you might be able to reach some kind of cessations. Or if it goes really well, it doesn't say really well, but we can imply it here. If it goes really well, you might be able to get to a rebirth in the formless realm. Okay. So in these 4 lines, we're basically saying all those kinds of things do is they just end up in realms of misery. And even if you have some kind of temporary paradise, it doesn't last. And what's the Pobonka would say, what's the primary cause to ensure that you end up in one of these, even if you are somewhat spiritual? How do you ensure that you would end up in one of these realms? What's the quickest way to ensure that you end up in one of these places? Let's look at the chat. Just don't meditate. Just have the first problem of meditation. Just walk by your meditation cushion and say, tomorrow. And then you have this, and then you can ensure that then you can ensure your own suffering. All right, 253. We're almost there. How far do we got to go? Got 5. We got 5 more verses. Let's get it done today. Let's celebrate. Who's next? You read. D. Natalia. Kiev.
Dena lam gi tso wo nam sumgan rungi ma zin par sem ki gobo kardog dan chips sumet partak ne gamay jemi god ma ang pei gunma su shesok suno rodde
Trade day. Nice. All right. So now he's coming in for like the kind of like the final blow. All right. So what if we don't even pay attention to Sum 3, the 3 principal paths? Okay. What if we just totally ignore all of that? Okay. And the 3 principal paths are what? 3 things. Renunciation, right? Which means you are just fed up with the suffering of this life. That all good things come to an end. Okay. All right. I was trying to connect something to something and I was wrong. Okay. So, and you're just tired of it. You're fed up. You're like, no more of this. Like real renunciation inspires actual change. Not the kind of renunciation that happens for a lot of people. Like someone, I've seen it happen. Like someone close dies. Everyone goes to the funeral. Everybody cries. Everyone grieves. Everyone looks at all. They go through that process, and then they somehow don't connect it to themselves in some way and the other people around them, and then they just go back to the way things were, minus the person. I've been in companies where people just don't come back, and all of a sudden the person's not there. Either they quit or, I've never had anyone die at work. We almost did actually. But someone just breaks their leg and isn't coming in for 6 weeks. I started a new job, and my direct boss, the person I was working under who was training me, broke his leg the second day I was working there. And our, the boss above that was like, yeah, so you're going to have to take over all of his projects. I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, he's not coming back for like 2 months. Good luck. And walks away. I'm like, okay, and that's what we do, right? All right, that person's absent. It's a disruptive for a little bit, but then, it just goes back to normal. Anybody that leaves the company, the vacuum that's left in their absence will be filled. Don't worry. Or alternatively, don't think that you're so special that they won't be able to fill the vacuum if you leave. That's the flip way of thinking about it. But that's renunciation, where you're like, I'm tired of things just keep going on. Secondly, bodhicitta, which is mainly renunciation for others. That you see others suffering in the same way and you don't want them to. You've had that deep experience for yourself, but then other people, you're like, oh God, yes. Like they're doing the same thing. We're no different. The color of our skin, the money or lack of money we have, the good or bad relationships. At the end of the day, we're no different. It might feel like there's some differences, but the fundamental differences haven't gone away. And then the third principal path is wisdom. And that's really understanding how reality is reality. So what he's saying is here, let's say that we don't pay attention to this, the three principal paths, and then we decide to examine the nature of the mind. Okay. We try to examine the nature of the mind by considering how it has no colors and shapes. Okay. So we're ignoring the three principal paths. And then we're like, well, I heard about this thing where the mind is clear and aware, right? And then you're like, well, I guess that means that the mind doesn't have any colors and shapes. And so that's what you meditate on. Okay. And this is before we even go on to what he says here. There's something incredibly profound that he's saying. You need to, the Mayingak here, for those of you who were in ACI 13 just an hour ago, he's saying for those who ignore the path and try to focus on something that's not even worthwhile focusing on, like a mind that has no colors and shapes. What he's also saying to us is you should have those attitudes in your mind when you meditate. Renunciation, bodhicitta, and wisdom. You should have those as attitudes, as orientations, like not even motivations, but like your mind is imbued with those things, which I think is a powerful teaching. And so then what they say is, all right, so someone doesn't have the three principal paths, and then they go focus on colors and shapes and considering the essence of mind. And then they say something like, don't cut off the flow from the past. Okay. Hold on, I need to check one word here. Okay. Like, don't cut it off from the past. Don't cut off, if your mind, don't interrupt the flow, right? And don't anticipate the flow of the mind into the future. Okay. So there's this. So here's an example. The person is ignoring the three principal paths, focusing on the nature of mind, no colors and shapes. And then someone says, don't interrupt the flow of the mind as it goes to the past, or it might go off to the future. What is that going to mean? So what is his advice on this? Who's next in the pictures? Oh, you learned. Everyone turn off their cameras and put them back on. So it looks like it's Anastasia Mansurova. You got a short one.
Thank you. Yay. 대참 검구 재패님이 제 도매 통제키 기웅완 신도 좋아 레 사람 강양 주민이.
Nice. So Pavonka is saying, look, if you meditate this way, like if you pretend, he's using a really strong word. Like, not only is he saying you're wrong, but then he's saying if you're so wrong and then you go, I'm super spiritual and I'm going to meditate. Okay. If you pretend to meditate this way. All it's going to do is consume your entire life. Let me say, hold on, having a okay. This is a kind of fun. Yeah, your entire life. Let me say. Oops. Your entire life will be meaningless. Dunmei. Okay. He's like, do all of those things and then try to meditate as super spiritual. It will be dunmei and it will be tong, empty. And you will not be capable, minne. You will not be able to move through all the spiritual levels and all the paths, the sa and the lams. Okay. You will not be capable of doing any of that. Your journey through that will be paused. You may not even be on the yellow brick road or something like that. Like you'll be completely off, So get this feeling like Pabonka's like, he's like, yo, did you hear what I just said for the last year? And he's like, I can just, to be able to speak in a room of 800 people, you have to have a really loud voice all day long. So, all right, let's finish. See if we can get this done. 2:55. Let's see. Next picture. Janine.
Thank you. Yang Dang, Ges Dong, Yang Dak Pe Ta Ba Dang. Skiapgo Tsina Rim Tsin Teng Shen Gi Nyam Len Dang, Tape Nyam Len Dang, Nang Pe Chu Sugro Bei Lama, No Ba De Drang Lang Yung Go.
Juke.
Juk?
Yeah, so there's a prenasal here. Njuk.
Njuk?
Yeah. Pretend you're speaking French. Njuk.
Njuk. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. This is when Pabonka gets really clear. And he gets a little sectarian, and we'll see what he means. Okay, so however, so you're not capable of getting on the path and following the bodhisattva levels. All those things are impossible if you do meditations like the super spiritual. However, so we're going to go back to the end here, right? When you enter, right? When you go, when you practice, okay? When your life is, let's say, imbued with bodhicitta, nejung, renunciation, let's say a good view of reality, right? Accurate view of reality. Okay. You take refuge. When you have done all of those things, okay, when you've already done them, okay, and then you practice the path of the greater way, all right? You practice for freedom, tarpa, okay? He says, and then you practice che, which is nangpa, which is Buddhist, okay? This is the practice that we should enter into, okay? Which is unmistaken, manorwa. All right. So what he's saying here is the contributing factors of whether your meditation is going to be good or not is what kind of seeds are you planting around it? What are you doing on your day-to-day base, on your day-to-day life? Right? Do you have bodhicitta? Do you have renunciation? Do you have an accurate view of the world? Have you gone for refuge, meaning going for refuge in the thing that can actually help you, which is emptiness? Are you practicing the greater way? Are you practicing for freedom? Right? Are you going into Buddhist Dharma? Right? This is what the unmistaken path is. And when I said earlier that it feels a little sectarian, right? Meaning that, oh, only Buddhists can be good meditators? That would be my debate question. I would say that's not what he's saying. What he's saying through all this is all of those things put together create good meditation. And whatever creates good meditation is Buddhist Dharma. That's what I would say. All right. And it's not religious and it's not sectarian and it's not like, oh, we're better than other people. Stop those thoughts. Okay. What part of being tired of the way things are is Buddhist? What part of it renunciation? What part of taking care of other people? What part of knowing where reality comes from? Like, do Buddhists teach it? Yes. But do other people teach it? Yes. Do they use different words? Probably. Right. But my argument would be is like, we could label them Buddhist, chi Buddhist. Okay. Not in this like put down other people kind of way, or we're better or worse than other people. It's not like that. He's also a monk and he's also in a monastery and he's also teaching all these people. So he's kind of inspiring them. Let's see if we can finish. Who wants to read? Sarah, you're next.
Dedra me par semki go wo sao, tongzin me sok dok pa sangki ni daksin la kiyang no minuparab namu te plag choktar gyunen yod
Nice. So it's lakcha.
lakcha. Thank you.
Okay. So, and he says, if we don't do those things, and if we just devote ourselves to thinking that the essence of the mind is clear and empty, and you can't hold on to it, etc. Okay. We're looking, if we focus on trying to realize all of that, it does not have any power to destroy our tendency to think that things are themselves. Okay. Very clear. If you're going in to just think that the mind is clear, empty, and you can't hold on to anything, then you're not doing anything to destroy the tendency to think things are themselves. And then nothing will change. And this is the most beautiful thing at the end of this. He's saying, you have to understand emptiness. Emptiness of your mind, the emptiness of the thoughts in your mind. Because they themselves also don't come from their own side. And he basically then refers back to the previous story of Lakcha, where he said, well, if you did do that, the most you could hope for is that you'll be able to meditate for years and a rat will eat your dreadlocks. Okay. Right. The best we can hope for is that we'll end up just like that guy, getting pissed off when our dreadlocks get eaten by a rat while we've been meditating for 6 months. Maria, would you like to read 257? Maria Sihova, your picture's next.
Sure. Thank you. De ta man pai lam la chang zang po mi ding par lam yang da dang dar nang pi
Nang che.
che she pa go tsung.
Nice. Good job.
Tsung.
Very good job. That was your first time in this class, but doesn't seem like it was your first time. So finally, we're a little bit over. We're going to finish this. And so Pabonka finished by saying, that we have to avoid the mistake that thinking that the lower paths are the good ones. And that we need to learn how to be able to distinguish between what's a pure path and a false one. Yay. We finished meditation. Congratulations, everyone. You know, and then to be able to distinguish how we tell from a pure path from a false one that will really help us and one that will not help us. And I think he gives us pretty good instructions on how to do that. And at the end of the day, it's really up to each one of us to make that determination ourselves. And that's the cool thing about Buddhism, is that they're not telling us what it is. They're saying, here's some ideas, test it out yourself. You know, so congratulations, everyone. After, I don't know, a year and a half, we finished the entire chapter, entire instructions on meditation. So we will then start on Thursday what we do with that meditation, how we think about emptiness, and how we, if once you've reached shamatha, then how do you put the insights of meditation into your meditation, the insights of wisdom, into your meditation. Yay. Thank you everybody for joining. It's kind of feels like a milestone to me. We have one book done. Actually, the goal is, once we finish the emptiness chapter, is to publish shamatha and vipassana together as one little pocketbook that people can carry around. Instructions on emptiness and meditation that you can put in your bag and look at instead of looking at your Instagram. Yay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, translators. Thank you, tech. Very much appreciate all of you. Really, really, I do. And we'll see you on Thursday. So let's say goodbye to each other and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Tim. Big hug.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you.
Vielen Dank, auf Wiedersehen.
Yay.
Thank you.
Congratulations to everyone. Thank you so much.
Hey.
Thank you,
Спасибо.
teacher.
Thank you, Tim. We love you.
And hi to Trinity on our behalf, please. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.